There was a silver Mercedes in my driveway. It wasn't mine. I stood at the curb with my suitcase handle cold in my grip. The morning air had that sharp bite you only get in early spring around here. The kind that wakes up your lungs before your brain catches on. Something was wrong. I knew it the way you know rain is coming before the first drop falls. Hello there. My name is Eleanor Vance. Most people call me Ellie. I'm 63 years old, and I live in a small brick colonial in Barrington Hills, Illinois. It's about 40 minutes northwest of Chicago, if traffic behaves. Which it never does. I've lived in this house for 31 years. Raised my son here. Buried my husband from here. Came home to it every single night of my working life. That morning, I was coming home early from a consulting conference in Minneapolis. I'd cut the trip short by 3 days. Couldn't explain why, really. Just a feeling. A quiet tug in my chest that said go home. So I did. And there was that Mercedes. Parked exactly where I always park. Like it belonged there. Like I didn't. Let me back up a little. My husband Frank passed 4 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and merciless. One day he was complaining about back pain. 8 weeks later, I was picking out casket linings. We'd been married 37 years. He was a structural engineer. Quiet man. Loved crossword puzzles and old jazz records. He had this way of making our house feel solid. Safe. Like the walls themselves knew he was watching over them. After he died, people kept asking when I'd sell. That house is too big for one person, they'd say. Wouldn't you be happier in a condo? I smiled and nodded and changed the subject. Because here's the thing. I wasn't ready to leave. Not the kitchen where Frank used to make Sunday pancakes. Not the garden where we planted tomatoes every May. Not the bedroom where I still slept on my side of the bed, even though the other side stayed cold. That house was my history. My anchor. I wasn't letting go. I worked in corporate consulting for over 30 years. Project management, mostly. Contracts, timelines, difficult conversations. I was good at it. I retired officially 2 years ago but still took freelance work when it interested me. I stayed busy. Walked 3 miles every morning. Met friends for coffee on Wednesdays. Read 2 books a week. I was not fragile. I was not confused. I want you to remember that. Back to that morning. I walked up the path slowly. The porch light was off, which was strange. I always left it on when I traveled. My key slid into the lock. The door opened too smoothly. No familiar squeak from the hinges. Someone had oiled them. Inside, the air smelled different. My house always smelled like lavender. I kept sachets in the hall drawer. A small comfort. Something soft in a world that had gotten sharper since Frank left. Now it smelled like sawdust. Fresh paint. Like someone had been sanding away my edges. My heart started beating in my throat. I heard voices from the kitchen. A woman laughing. Bright and performative. The kind of laugh that wants to be noticed. I set down my suitcase without a sound. Walked down the hallway. And stopped. The walls were bare. My family photographs. 30 years of them. Birthdays. Christmases. Ethan's graduation. Frank and me at our anniversary dinner, the year before he got sick. Gone. Just pale rectangles where the frames used to hang. Like ghosts that didn't know they'd died. I reached the kitchen doorway. What I saw made my chest go hollow. Drop cloths covered my honey-colored tile floor. The cabinets I'd saved for months to buy. The ones Frank installed himself one summer weekend. They were torn out, piled in the corner like garbage. The blue hydrangea wallpaper. Frank called those flowers happy. Said they made the room feel like it was always morning. Torn. Hanging in strips. At my kitchen table sat my son, Ethan. He was 36 years old. Had my eyes and his father's stubborn jaw. He scrolled through his phone with his feet propped up on a chair. Relaxed. Comfortable. Like this was already his. Near the wall stood his wife. Brielle. They'd been married 8 months. I'd only met her a handful of times before the wedding. She had platinum hair pulled back tight and clothes that looked expensive in the way expensive things do. Like they exist to remind you who has power. She was holding a paint swatch up to the bare wall. "These old cabinets are so dated," she said. "We should just replace everything." Ethan didn't look up. "Whatever you want, babe." Then he added, casually, like commenting on the weather. "It's all ours now anyway." The words hit me like a slap. I grabbed the doorframe to keep steady. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Then something shifted inside me. Not rage. Not yet. Something colder. Clearer. I stepped into the doorway. "Excuse me." They both jumped. Brielle's hand flew to her chest. The paint swatch fluttered to the ground. Ethan stood so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "Mom?" His face went pale. "You're not supposed to be back until Friday." I walked into the wreckage. My wreckage. On the counter, I saw Frank's Rooster cookie jar. Wrapped in bubble plastic. Ready to be packed away. He'd given me that jar for our 5th anniversary. Said it was ugly but cheerful. Said it reminded him of me in the mornings before coffee. I looked at my son. "What," I said slowly, "is happening in my house?" Brielle recovered fast. Her smile slid back into place. Smooth. Practiced. "Eleanor," she said warmly. "What a lovely surprise. We're just doing some renovations before we move in." I stared at her. "Move in," I repeated. "Yes. Ethan mentioned you were thinking of downsizing. Something more manageable." She tilted her head, almost pitying. "You know, at your age, at my age, I was 63. I walked 3 miles every morning. I'd closed a 6-figure consulting deal just 3 weeks earlier. I managed complex projects and difficult people for a living." I looked at Ethan. "Is that what you told her?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mom, listen." I raised my hand. "I never said I was downsizing," I said quietly. "I never gave permission for anyone to move into my home. And I certainly did not give permission to destroy my kitchen." Brielle's smile flickered. "But Ethan has your power of attorney," she said. Like it was a winning card. Something cold settled in my stomach. "I gave Ethan limited authority to handle paperwork while I traveled," I said. "That gives him 0 rights to my property." I looked around the room. Boxes stacked by the door. Labels in thick marker. "Donate." "Storage." "Trash." My mother's mixing bowls in a taped box. Frank's books from his study. "Missing." "You've been going through my belongings," I said. Without asking. Brielle's mask slipped. "Just for a second. We were trying to help," she snapped. "This house is too big for you. You're getting older. You need." "How long?" I cut her off. My voice steady. "How long has this been going on?" Ethan's shoulders dropped. 2 weeks, he whispered. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of my life being sorted and packed and erased while I was gone. I walked to the back door and opened it. Cold air rushed in. "Get out," I said. Ethan stepped toward me. "Mom, please. Let's talk about this." 60 seconds, I said. "Or I call the police and report a break-in." Brielle grabbed her purse. Her heels clicked sharp against my ruined floor. At the door, Ethan turned back. His face was strange, wounded and angry at once. "Family doesn't do this," he said. I held his gaze. "Family doesn't steal your home while you're away." I closed the door, locked it. and stood in the silence of my gutted kitchen, surrounded by cardboard boxes and torn wallpaper, while something cold and quiet took root in my chest. I didn't know it yet. But this was only the beginning. When the lock clicked shut, my legs nearly gave out. I stood there in my ruined kitchen, hands shaking, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. The house was quiet now. Just me and the mess they left behind. I looked at the torn wallpaper, the piled cabinets, the boxes stacked by the door like I was already gone. And something inside me cracked. I don't cry easily. Frank used to joke that I had a heart made of oak. Solid, stubborn, slow to burn. But that morning, I cried. Not pretty tears. Not the kind you see in movies. The ugly kind. The kind that shakes your whole body and leaves you gasping on the kitchen floor with snot running down your face. I cried for Frank. For the life we built. For the son I thought I knew. I cried until there was nothing left. Then I got up, washed my face at the sink, and started walking through my house. Room by room. I needed to see what they'd taken. Frank's study was first. The door was open. It was never open. I'd kept it closed since he passed. A small shrine. His books on the shelves. His reading glasses on the desk. His old cardigan draped over the chair like he might come back any minute. The room was empty, not rearranged. Empty. The bookshelves bare. The desk cleared. Even the chair was gone. I stood in the doorway and felt the air leave my lungs. 4 years of grief. 4 years of keeping this room exactly as he left it. Gone in 2 weeks. The bedroom was worse. My closet doors hung open. Half my clothes were missing. Winter coats. Dresses I'd saved for special occasions. The blue silk blouse I wore to our 30th anniversary dinner. The top shelf, where I kept my mother's jewelry box. Empty. That box had her wedding ring. Her pearl earrings. A cameo brooch that belonged to my grandmother. 3 generations of women, packed up like garage sale leftovers. I sat on the edge of the bed. My bed. The bed I'd shared with Frank for 31 years. The sheets were different. Someone had changed my sheets. The violation of it hit me all at once. They hadn't just taken things. They'd erased me, replaced me, made decisions about my life while I was 1,000 miles away. I found the boxes in the garage. Dozens of them, stacked floor to ceiling along the back wall. A cardboard monument to my erasure. Each one labeled in thick black marker. Donate, trash, storage. My life sorted into 3 categories by people who had no right. I opened the first box. Frank's jazz records. The ones he played every Sunday morning while making pancakes. Ella Fitzgerald, Miles Davis, Chet Baker. Donate. The next box held photo albums. Our wedding. Ethan's baby pictures. Vacations we took before life got complicated. Storage. Like memories were something you could pack away and forget. I found my mother's mixing bowls wrapped in newspaper. The ones she used to make Christmas cookies. The ones I learned to bake in when I was 8 years old. Trash. That's when the crying stopped. Something else took its place. I called Rachel Hayes at 9 o'clock sharp. She'd been my attorney for 15 years. Handled our estate planning, Frank's will, all the paperwork of a life lived carefully. Rachel, I said when she answered. It's Ellie Vance. I need help. Today. Silence on the line. Then her voice, calm and precise. Tell me everything. So I did. Rachel arrived at 11 with a paralegal and a folder of documents. She was 60 years old. Silver hair cut short, eyes like a hawk sizing up prey. She walked through the house without speaking. Took pictures with her phone. Made notes in a small leather book. When she came back to the living room, her jaw was tight. This is bad, she said. But fixable. She sat across from me at the dining table. The one they hadn't touched yet. First things first, she said. That limited power of attorney you gave Ethan. We're revoking it today. Right now. I nodded. Second, new locks on every door. I have a locksmith on the way. Already? I called him from the car. She opened her folder. Third, we document everything. Every missing item. Every piece of damage. Photos, video, written inventory. I looked at the bare walls. The pale rectangles where my photos used to hang. And then? I asked. Rachel met my eyes. Then we wait, she said. Because they're going to push back. Hard. The locksmith's name was Fitz. Big man. Quiet. Worked fast. He changed every lock in the house in under 2 hours. Front door. Back door. Garage. Even the side gate. When he handed me the new keys, he paused. Ma'am, he said gently. Someone giving you trouble? I looked at this stranger. This kind man who didn't know my story. My son, I said. He didn't flinch. Didn't judge. I'm sorry, he said. That's the hardest kind. He left his card on the counter. Just in case. The calls started that afternoon. Ethan first. 4 times in an hour. I didn't answer. Then the texts. Mom, we need to talk. You're overreacting. Brielle is really upset. You embarrassed her. This is ridiculous. I read each one. Felt nothing. Then came the one that made my blood go cold. We have rights to that house. Dad would have wanted this. I stared at the screen. Dad would have wanted this. Frank. Who built those cabinets with his own hands? Who planted the rose bushes by the front porch? Who spent 30 years making this house a home? Frank would have wanted strangers tearing it apart? I turned off my phone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, with my old sheets that I'd found in a box labeled donate and stared at the ceiling. The house felt different, wounded. Like it knew something had changed. I kept thinking about Ethan's face when I told him to leave. The anger. The disbelief. But underneath that, something else. He'd looked scared. Not of me. Of something else. I thought about Brielle. The way her smile never quite reached her eyes. The way she'd answered for him. Spoken over him. 8 months of marriage. And I barely knew her. What did I really know? The police called the next morning. A young officer. Polite but uncomfortable. Mrs. Vance, he said, your son came to the station last night. He's claiming you illegally denied him access to his property. I almost laughed. His property? He says he's co-owner of the house. I gripped the phone tighter. That house has been in my name since 1993, I said. My husband and I paid off the mortgage in 2008. Ethan Vance is not on the deed. He has never been on the deed. Silence on the line. Ma'am, do you have documentation? My attorney can send it within the hour. That would be helpful. I hung up and called Rachel. They're claiming co-ownership, I said. She didn't sound surprised. I expected this, she said. They're testing boundaries. Seeing what sticks. What do? We respond with facts. Calmly. Clearly. And we prepare for what comes next. What comes next? Rachel paused. When she spoke again, her voice was careful. Ellie, she said, I've seen cases like this before. When the property grab doesn't work, they try something else. Like what? Conservatorship. The word hung in the air. They'll claim you're not competent, she continued. That you can't make decisions for yourself. That you need someone to manage your affairs. My hand tightened on the phone. I'm 63 years old, I said. I just closed a consulting contract 3 weeks ago. I walk 3 miles every morning. I pay my bills on time. I know, Rachel said gently. I know who you are. But they'll try to tell a different story. I thought about Brielle's words. At your age, something more manageable. You're getting older. The pieces clicked into place. That afternoon, I sat at Frank's desk. His empty desk. In his empty study, I'd found one thing they missed. A small wooden box in the back of a drawer. Inside were letters, birthday cards, a note he'd written me on our 25th anniversary. You're stronger than you think, it said. You always have been. I held that note for a long time. Rachel called again before dinner. They filed, she said. Filed what? A petition. For emergency conservatorship. Claiming you're showing signs of cognitive decline. I closed my eyes. On what grounds? They're saying you've been confused. Forgetful. Making irrational decisions. She paused. Ethan signed an affidavit. My own son. Swearing in court that his mother had lost her mind. The hearing is in 10 days, Rachel said. We need to prepare. I looked around the empty study. The bare shelves. The dust where Frank's things used to be. Rachel, I said quietly. What if I lose? You won't. But if I do? Silence. If you lose, she said finally, they control everything. Your money. Your house. Your medical decisions. Your life. I let that sink in. Then something shifted inside me. Something hard and bright and unbreakable. Then I won't lose, I said. That night, I made a list. Every doctor's appointment for the past 2 years. Every consulting project. Every contract I'd negotiated. Every meeting I'd led. Every decision I'd made. Proof that I was exactly who I'd always been. Then I made another list. Every strange thing I'd noticed over the past year. The fog that sometimes settled over my thoughts. The dizziness I'd blamed on stress. The coffee Brielle always insisted on making when she visited. I stared at that second list for a long time. And wondered what I'd been drinking. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid. Because I was angry. Anger is a strange thing. It can burn you from the inside. Or it can fuel you. Keep you moving when everything else says stop. That night, I chose fuel. At 6 in the morning, I was already at my dining table. Coffee, legal pad, pen. I wrote down everything I could remember about the past year. Every visit from Ethan and Brielle. Every phone call. Every meal we shared. The pattern emerged slowly, like a photograph developing in the dark. They'd started visiting more often about 10 months ago. Right after the wedding. At first I was happy. Grateful, even. I thought Brielle was drawing Ethan closer to family. Now I saw it differently. Every visit, Brielle made coffee. Insisted on it. You sit down, Eleanor. Let me take care of you. Every visit, I felt tired afterward. Foggy. I blamed it on age. On grief. On working too hard. Every visit, they asked questions. About the house. About my finances. About my plans. Have you thought about what happens to this place when you're gone? Do you really need all this space? Wouldn't it be easier if we helped manage things? I'd brushed it off. They were being thoughtful. Practical. I was being blind. Rachel arrived at 9. She brought more documents. More questions. A sharper look in her eyes. The conservatorship hearing is in 8 days, she said. We need to be ready. We sat at the dining table. The same table where I'd signed my wedding certificate. Where Ethan had blown out birthday candles. Where Frank had told me about his diagnosis. What do they have? I asked. Rachel opened a folder. Ethan's affidavit claims you've been showing signs of cognitive decline for the past year. Confusion. Memory lapses. Irrational behavior. That's a lie. I know. She pulled out another page. They also have a statement from Brielle. She says you've been hostile. Paranoid. That you've accused them of things that never happened. I stared at the papers. My own son. Lying to a court. About me. There's more, Rachel said quietly. She handed me a medical form. They're requesting a neurological evaluation. Court ordered. To assess your mental capacity. I read the words. Read them again. Subject shows signs of early onset dementia. Recommend full cognitive assessment. Who signed this? I asked. Rachel's jaw tightened. A drive. Marcus Webb. He's a psychiatrist in the city. I've never seen him. I've never even heard that name. I know. She met my eyes. Ellie, they're building a case. A fake case. They want the court to believe you're incapable of making decisions. I set down the paper. What do? We prove them wrong, she said. Every document, every record, every person who can testify that you're exactly who you've always been. The next 3 days were a blur. I gathered everything. Bank statements showing I paid my bills on time. Tax returns I'd filed myself. Consulting contracts I'd negotiated and signed. I called my doctor. My real doctor. Dr. Patricia Morrison. She'd known me for 12 years. Ellie, she said when I explained. This is outrageous. Your last physical was 6 months ago. Blood pressure perfect. Cholesterol in range. Cognitive screening completely normal. Can you testify to that? Absolutely. I called former colleagues, clients, friends. Everyone said the same thing. Sharp, reliable, clear-headed, not a confused old woman losing her grip. On the 4th day, something changed. I was organizing files in Frank's empty study when the doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. A delivery driver. Brown uniform. Clipboard. I opened the door. Eleanor Vance? Yes. He handed me a package. Small. No return address. Sign here, please. I signed. He left. I stood in the doorway, holding the box. Something felt wrong. I took it to the kitchen. Set it on the counter. The tape was plain. Brown paper. My name and address printed in generic block letters. I opened it carefully. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was my mother's jewelry box. My heart stopped. The pearls. The cameo. My grandmother's ring. I lifted the lid. Empty. Everything was gone. Just a note at the bottom. Handwritten. Neat cursive. You should have cooperated. Now this gets ugly. I didn't move for a long time. Just stood there, staring at the empty velvet lining. 3 generations of women. Erased. And a threat. Clear and cold. I called Rachel. Don't touch anything else, she said. I'm calling Detective Morgan Reed. She handles elder exploitation cases. Elder exploitation? That's what this is, Ellie. Rachel's voice was tight. This is a pattern. I've seen it before. The fast marriage. The isolation. The asset pressure. The competency claims. I thought about Betrayal. Her smooth smile. Her careful words. You think she's done this before? I asked. I think we need to find out. Detective Reed came to the house that afternoon. She was younger than I expected. Early 40s. Dark hair pulled back. Eyes that missed nothing. She photographed the jewelry box. The note. The packaging. Then she sat across from me at the dining table. Mrs. Vance, she said, tell me about your daughter-in-law. I told her everything I knew. Which wasn't much. Brielle Carter. Met Ethan at a charity gala 14 months ago. Whirlwind romance. Engaged within 3 months. Married within 6. I'd met her 4 times before the wedding. She was always polished. Always charming. Always just a little too perfect. Where did she grow up? Detective Reed asked. I paused. Connecticut, I think. Or was it Virginia? I shook my head. She never talked much about her past. Family? A mother somewhere. She mentioned her once. They're not close. Previous marriages? I don't know. Detective Reed wrote something in her notebook. What about employment? She asked. Before she married your son? I opened my mouth, closed it. I don't know, I said quietly. I never asked. She nodded. No judgment, just patience. What do you know about her finances? The question sat in the air. Ethan paid for the wedding, I said slowly. I remember thinking it was generous. He's not wealthy. His job at the marketing firm pays well, but not that well. And since the wedding, I thought about the Mercedes in my driveway. The designer clothes. The expensive haircut. They seem to have more money now, I said. I assumed his career was going well. Detective Reed closed her notebook. Mrs. Vance, she said carefully. I'm going to look into this. But I need you to do something for me. Anything. I want you to see your doctor. Not for the court evaluation. For yourself. I frowned. I just talked to Dr. Morrison. She says I'm fine. I know. Detective Reed leaned forward. But I'd like her to run some specific blood tests. Looking for certain substances. My stomach dropped. You think they drugged me? I think it's worth checking. Dr. Morrison saw me the next morning. She drew blood without questions. Said she'd rush the results. Ellie, she said before I left. Whatever this is, you're not alone. I nodded. Couldn't speak. That night, Ethan called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Some stubborn part of me that still remembered the boy who used to climb into my lap during thunderstorms. Mom. His voice was strange, tight. We need to talk. So talk. Silence. Then, Brielle thinks you should drop the lawyer. She says if you just cooperate, we can work this out as a family. I gripped the phone tighter. Cooperate how? Just let us help you. With the house. The finances. You don't have to do this alone. I'm not alone, I said. I have Rachel. I have friends. I have a doctor who says I'm perfectly competent. That's not what Drive Webb says. I went cold. I've never met Drive Webb. Silence. Ethan, I said slowly. How did Drive Webb examine me if I've never met him? Nothing. Ethan, answer me. His voice came out small. Confused. Brielle said. She said you saw him last month. That you just don't remember. That's a lie. Mom, I have never seen that doctor. I have never been to his office. Someone is lying to you. More silence. I could hear him breathing. Ethan, I said, what's really going on? A long pause. Then his voice. Barely a whisper. I don't know anymore. The line went dead. I sat in the dark for hours. Thinking about that voice. That small, lost voice. My son was in there somewhere. Buried under whatever spell she'd cast. But I couldn't save him. Not yet. First, I had to save myself. The test results came back 2 days before the hearing. Dr. Morrison called at 7 in the morning. Ellie, she said, we found something. My heart stopped. Traces of benzodiazepines in your blood. Low levels. Consistent with repeated small doses over time. The room tilted. Someone's been drugging me? It appears so. Her voice was careful, professional, furious underneath. Not enough to harm you. But enough to make you seem confused. Forgetful. Unsteady. I thought about the coffee. The fog. The dizziness I blamed on stress. How long? I asked. Months, probably. Maybe longer. I closed my eyes. They hadn't just tried to take my house. They'd tried to take my mind. I called Detective Reed. I know, she said. Dr. Morrison already contacted me. What happens now? Now we have evidence, she said. And I have some news of my own. I waited. Brielle Carter, she said slowly. That's not her real name. The words didn't make sense at first. What? I ran her background. The social security number traces to someone named Serena Vaughn. Prior arrests in Arizona and Florida. Fraud. Elder exploitation. Never convicted. Cases dropped when victims became unable to testify. Unable to testify. Because they'd been drugged. Declared incompetent. Silenced. How many? I whispered. At least 3 that we know of. Detective Reed paused. You're the 4th. That night, I locked every door. Checked every window. And sat in my living room with the lights off. Thinking about the woman who'd married my son. The woman who'd smiled at me over coffee she'd made with her own hands. The woman who'd tried to erase me. And was still trying. The morning of the hearing, I woke before dawn. Couldn't sleep anyway. I stood at my bedroom window and watched the sky turn gray. Then pink. Then gold. My house was quiet. Too quiet. In a few hours, strangers would decide if I could keep living my own life. Rachel picked me up at 8. She was wearing her court suit. Navy blue. Sharp shoulders. Battle armor. How do you feel? She asked. Ready. She looked at me for a long moment. Good, she said. Because today might get ugly. The courthouse was cold. Not just the temperature. The whole place felt cold. Marble floors. Fluorescent lights. The echo of footsteps that didn't belong to you. We sat in a hallway outside courtroom 4B. Waiting. I watched people walk past. Lawyers with briefcases. Families with worried faces. Everyone carrying something heavy. Then I saw them. Ethan and Brielle. Walking toward us from the far end of the hall. She was wearing white. Of course she was. White blouse. White skirt. Like an angel. Like innocence itself. Ethan looked different. Thinner. Paler. Dark circles under his eyes. He walked a half step behind her, like a shadow. Brielle saw me watching. She smiled. That same smooth, practiced smile. The one that never reached her eyes. They stopped about 10 feet away. Their lawyer leaned in, whispered something. Brielle nodded. Then she looked directly at me. Eleanor, she said. Warm. Concerned. I'm so sorry it came to this. I didn't respond. Rachel's hand touched my arm. Steady. Grounding. We should go in, she said. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling. American flag. A judge's bench that seemed too high. Like it was designed to make you feel small. We sat on one side. They sat on the other. Ethan wouldn't look at me. The judge entered. Gray-haired. Glasses. A face that had seen too many sad stories. This hearing is to consider a petition for emergency conservatorship, he said. Case number 2024 CV 4471. The petitioners claim the respondent is unable to make sound decisions regarding her personal and financial affairs. He looked up. Let's hear from the petitioners first. Their lawyer stood. Young. Slick. The kind who practiced his speeches in mirrors. Your Honor, we're here today out of concern for Mrs. Vance's well-being. Her son, Ethan Vance, has witnessed disturbing changes in his mother over the past year. He glanced at me. Sympathetic. Fake. Confusion. Memory loss. Irrational behavior. Hostility toward family members who only want to help. He held up papers. We have an affidavit from Mr. Vance. We also have a medical evaluation from Dr. Marcus Webb, a licensed psychiatrist, recommending immediate intervention. Rachel shifted beside me. The lawyer continued. Mrs. Vance has become a danger to herself. She's making erratic financial decisions. She's refused assistance from her own son. Without intervention, we fear for her safety. He sat down. The judge turned to us. Response? Rachel stood slowly. Your Honor, my client is not confused. She's not irrational. She's not a danger to anyone. She opened her folder. Eleanor Vance is a 63-year-old professional consultant who has managed complex projects for Fortune 500 companies. Her last contract was negotiated 3 weeks ago. She placed documents on the judge's bench. Bank records showing perfect financial management. Tax returns filed on time for 30 years. A cognitive evaluation from her personal physician, Dr. Patricia Morrison, showing completely normal function. The judge reviewed the papers. Rachel continued. Your Honor, the petitioners claim my client saw Dr. Marcus Webb for evaluation. She has never met this man. We've confirmed it. The medical report is fraudulent. Murmurs from the other side. Furthermore, Rachel said, we have evidence of something far more disturbing. She pulled out another document. Blood tests showing my client was exposed to benzodiazepines over an extended period. Someone has been drugging Mrs. Vance deliberately to create the appearance of cognitive decline. The judge's eyebrows rose. And finally, Rachel said, we have information from Detective Morgan Reed of the Elder Exploitation Unit. She turned to look at Brielle. The woman calling herself Brielle Carter is actually Serena Vaughn. She has prior arrests in Arizona and Florida for fraud and elder exploitation. This isn't a family matter, Your Honor. This is a crime. Silence. Then Brielle laughed. It wasn't her usual laugh. The bright, performative one. This was different. Low. Amused. That's quite a story, she said. Her lawyer touched her arm. She shook him off. Your Honor, I don't know what kind of fantasy Mrs. Vance has constructed, but, Ms. Carter, the judge interrupted. You'll have your opportunity to respond. But Brielle kept talking. This poor woman is clearly delusional. Accusing her own daughter-in-law of being some kind of criminal mastermind? She shook her head. It's sad, really. This is exactly what we were worried about. She looked at Ethan. Isn't it, honey? Ethan didn't answer. Ethan, she said sharper. Tell them. He lifted his head slowly. Looked at me. Then at Brielle. Something flickered in his eyes. His voice cracked. I don't know. Brielle's smile faltered. What do you mean you don't know? I mean, he swallowed. Mom never seemed confused to me. Not until you said, Ethan. Her voice cut like glass. We talked about this, did we? He looked at her. Really looked. Or did you talk and I just agreed? The courtroom went still. I watched my son. Watched him struggle with something he couldn't name. Mom, he said, turning to me. Did someone really drug you? I nodded. The same thing. He pressed his palm to his forehead. The same thing keeps happening to me. Foggy. Can't think straight. Brielle makes coffee every morning and after I drink it, I feel. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Brielle's mask cracked completely. Ethan, stop talking. Right now. I don't feel right, he said, louder. I haven't felt right in months. And every time I try to think about it, you're there. Telling me what to think. What to remember. You're embarrassing yourself. Am I? He stood up. Or am I finally waking up? The judge raised his hand. That's enough. This hearing is suspended pending investigation. Brielle's lawyer stood quickly. Your Honor, I said suspended. The judge's voice was iron. Given the serious allegations raised by both parties, I'm ordering a full investigation. Mrs. Vance will retain all rights to her property and finances until further notice. He looked at Brielle. Ms. Carter or whatever your name is, I suggest you cooperate fully with law enforcement. Brielle's face went cold. Not angry. Not scared. Empty. Like a mask with nothing behind it. This isn't over, she said quietly. Then she walked out. Ethan didn't follow her. He stood in the middle of the courtroom. Lost. Shaking. I went to him. Mom, he whispered. What's happening to me? I took his hands. They were cold. We're going to figure it out, I said. But first, we need to get you away from her. He nodded. Tears in his eyes. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I believed, I don't know why I couldn't see. It's not your fault. But I signed those papers. I said those things about you. She manipulated you. I squeezed his hands. The same way she tried to manipulate me. He broke down then, right there in the courtroom. My 36-year-old son. Sobbing like a child. I held him. The way I used to when he was small and the world scared him. We took him to the hospital that afternoon. Dr. Morrison ran the same tests she'd run on me. The results came back in 3 hours. Benzodiazepines. Higher doses than mine. Consistent with months of exposure. He's been taking it daily, Morrison said. Probably in food or drink. High enough to impair judgment. Memory. Critical thinking. Ethan lay in the hospital bed. IV in his arm. Color slowly returning to his face. She poisoned me, he said softly. My own wife poisoned me. I sat beside him. She poisoned both of us. He turned to look at me. Why? His voice broke. What did she want? Everything, I said. The house. The money. Our family. He closed his eyes. I almost let her take it. But you didn't. Because of you. He opened his eyes. Wet. Red. You fought back. Even when I was against you. Even when I said terrible things. I touched his face. The same face I'd watched grow from baby to boy to man. You're my son, I said. That never changed. Detective Reed came by that evening. She spoke to Ethan first. Recorded his statement. Got every detail he could remember. Then she pulled me aside. We have a problem, she said quietly. What kind? Brielle Serena, she posted bail this afternoon. She's out. My blood went cold. Out where? Unknown. She's not at the address she gave. Detective Reed's jaw tightened. She's gone underground. But Ellie, people like this don't just disappear. They finish what they started. I looked at Ethan through the hospital room window. What do? We put security on Ethan. On you. And we wait. For what? Detective Reed met my eyes. For her to make a mistake. That night, I stayed at the hospital. Slept in the chair beside Ethan's bed. Every sound made me jump. Every footstep in the hallway. Every voice outside the door. But she didn't come. Not that night. The call came the next morning. I was half asleep when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Hello, Eleanor. Her voice. Smooth. Calm. Like nothing had happened. Where are you? I asked. That's not important. What's important is what happens next. Silence. You took something from me, she said. My investment. My future. And I don't forget. You tried to steal my life. I tried to build something. Her voice hardened. Do you know how hard it is? To find the right mark? To do everything perfectly? To get so close, and then have some stubborn old woman ruin everything? I gripped the phone tighter. What do you want? I want you to know, she said, that this isn't over. Not until I say it's over. The line went dead. I looked at Ethan. Still sleeping. Still safe. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait anymore. I was going to end this. 3 months have passed since that phone call. I'm sitting on my porch now. Coffee in hand. Morning light coming through the trees. The roses Frank planted are blooming again. Pink and stubborn. Just like he always said I was. It's quiet here. The kind of quiet that used to scare me after he died. Now it feels like peace. They caught Serena 2 weeks after she disappeared. She'd made it all the way to Nevada. Tried the same scheme on another family. A widower in Reno with early-stage Parkinson's and a house worth $500,000. But this time, the police were watching. Detective Reed called me when they made the arrest. "It's over," she said. I thanked her, hung up, and sat in my kitchen for a long time. Over. Such a small word for something that had nearly destroyed everything. The trial lasted 4 days. I testified on the second day. Told the whole story. The Mercedes in my driveway. The torn wallpaper. The coffee that made my thoughts go soft. Ethan testified too. His voice shook the whole time. But he didn't stop. Didn't look away. When they asked him to identify the woman who had drugged him, married him, and used him to steal from his own mother, he pointed at her without hesitation. Serena watched us both with empty eyes. No anger. No remorse. Just calculation. Like she was already planning her next move. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty. On all counts. Fraud. Elder exploitation. Assault. Attempted theft. 12 years in prison. I watched them take her away in handcuffs. She didn't look back. And I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not relief. Just tired. The kind of tired that settles into your bones after you've been fighting for too long. The house took longer to heal than I expected. I hired contractors to fix the kitchen. New cabinets. New tile. But I kept the color scheme simple this time. Cream walls. Warm wood. No more hydrangeas. Some things you can't recreate. Shouldn't try to. Frank's study was harder. For weeks, I couldn't even open the door. The emptiness felt like an accusation. Like I'd failed to protect the things that mattered. Then one afternoon, Ethan came by. He'd been staying at a recovery facility for the first month. Getting the drugs out of his system. Learning to trust his own thoughts again. Now he was back in his apartment. Going to therapy twice a week. Slowly becoming someone I recognized. He stood in the doorway of Frank's study. Looked at the bare walls. "I'm sorry," he said. "About all of it." I shook my head. "You already apologized." "I know." He stepped into the room. Ran his hand along the empty bookshelf. "But I keep thinking about what we lost. Dad's things. Grandma's jewelry. All those years of memories." I watched him. My son. Still carrying guilt he didn't deserve. "Things can be replaced," I said. "Not those things." "No." I walked to stand beside him. "Not those exact things. But the memories aren't gone. They're still here." I touched my chest. "She couldn't take those." Detective Reed helped us recover some of what was stolen. Serena had a storage unit in Wisconsin. Full of items from her previous victims. Photo albums. Jewelry. Legal documents. We found my mother's cameo brooch in a shoebox labeled, "Misk." I held it in my palm. Felt the weight of 3 generations. The rest was gone. Sold. Scattered. Lost forever. But this one piece remained. Sometimes that's enough. Spring came late that year. I spent most of April in the garden. Pulling weeds. Planting new flowers. Getting dirt under my fingernails. Frank used to say gardening was therapy you could eat. He was right about a lot of things. Ethan came by most weekends. We didn't talk much at first. Just worked side by side. Handed each other tools. Shared water from the same bottle. Slowly, the silence became comfortable again. One afternoon, he stopped digging and looked at me. "How do you forgive someone?" he asked. I wiped sweat from my forehead. Who are you trying to forgive? Myself. I set down my trowel. Ethan, I said, you were a victim. Same as me. But I should have seen it. Should have known. How? She was a professional. She'd done this before. To people smarter than both of us. He shook his head, unconvinced. I signed those papers, he said. I stood in court and said you were losing your mind. Because you believed it. Because she made you believe it. That's not an excuse. No, I agreed. It's an explanation. There's a difference. He was quiet for a long moment. Does it get easier? He finally asked. The guilt? I thought about that. It doesn't disappear, I said. But it gets lighter. If you let it. He nodded slowly. We went back to digging. I've thought a lot about forgiveness since then. It's not what I expected. Not a single moment of release. Not a decision you make once and never revisit. It's more like weather. It changes. Some days the anger comes back like a storm. Other days there's only quiet acceptance. Forgiving Serena was never the goal. Some actions don't deserve forgiveness. Some people don't ask for it. But forgiving Ethan, forgiving myself, that was necessary. Because carrying rage is exhausting. And I had already lost too much time. Last month, Detective Reed asked me to speak at a community event. Senior Safety Awareness. A room full of people my age. Some older. All of them worried about becoming victims. I almost said no. Who wants to stand up and admit they were fooled? That their own child was used against them? That they spent months being slowly poisoned by someone they'd welcomed into their home? But then I thought about the woman Serena targeted in Reno. And the ones before me in Arizona and Florida. Maybe my story could help someone else see the signs. So I said yes. The room was smaller than I expected. Folding chairs. Bad lighting. Coffee that tasted like regret. But the faces looking back at me were real. Attentive. Scared in ways they probably couldn't name. I told them everything. The warning signs I missed. The isolation I didn't notice. The way she built trust before she broke it. I told them about the coffee. The fog. The medical evaluation from a doctor I'd never met. I told them about the boxes in my garage. My life sorted into donate, storage, and trash by someone who thought I wouldn't fight back. When I finished, a woman in the front row raised her hand. How did you know? She asked. That something was wrong? I thought about it. I didn't know, I admitted. Not at first. I just felt it. Something off. Something that didn't fit. I looked at all of them. Trust that feeling, I said. When something seems wrong, it probably is. Ask questions. Talk to people. Don't let anyone tell you you're imagining things. Another hand. What if it's family? A man asked. What if the person hurting you is someone you love? The hardest question. Then you protect yourself first, I said. Love doesn't mean letting someone destroy you. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. I drove home that evening with the windows down. The air smelled like cut grass and lilac. Summer coming on strong. I thought about Frank. What he would say if he could see me now. Probably something simple, practical. That was his way. You did good, Ellie. Now get some rest. I smiled at the empty passenger seat. I'm trying, I said out loud. Some nights I still check the locks twice. Still wake up at small sounds. Still feel my heart race when an unknown number calls. The fear doesn't vanish just because the danger is gone. It lives in your body. In your nervous system. In the way you hold your breath when someone knocks unexpectedly. But it fades. Slowly. And the good moments start to outnumber the bad. Ethan got a new job last month. Different company. Fresh start. He's dating someone. A woman named Jenna. She's a kindergarten teacher. Laughs easily. Talks with her hands. He brought her to dinner last Sunday. I made pot roast. Frank's recipe. She asked about the cameo brooch I was wearing. Family heirloom, I said. Long story. Ethan caught my eye across the table. Smiled. We didn't tell her the whole story. Not yet. Some things take time. But watching them together. Watching my son rediscover himself. That was enough. I'm 64 now. My kitchen has new cabinets. My locks have been changed twice. My will has been rewritten, reviewed, and locked in a safe no one can access but me. But more than that, I'm still here. Still walking 3 miles every morning. Still reading 2 books a week. Still sitting on this porch with my coffee, watching the roses bloom. Serena wanted to erase me. Pack me into boxes and label me trash. She failed. Not because I was stronger than her. Or smarter. Because I refused to disappear. If you're listening to this story, maybe you're going through something similar. Maybe someone is slowly convincing you that you can't trust yourself. That you need their help. That you're too old, too confused, too much trouble. Let me tell you something. You are not too much. You are not disposable. Your home, your memories, your life. They belong to you. No one has the right to take them. And if someone tries, fight back. Get help. Call a lawyer. Talk to the police. Tell your doctor. Tell your friends. Don't be ashamed. This happens to people every day. Smart people. Capable people. People who never imagined it could happen to them. It happened to me. And I survived. So can you. The sun is setting now. The sky has turned that soft pink that Frank always loved. Cotton candy sky, he called it. I'm going to finish my coffee. Maybe pour a glass of wine. Sit here until the stars come out. Tomorrow I'll work in the garden. Call Ethan. Maybe visit that new bookstore downtown. Small things. Ordinary things. The things that make a life. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I know it was long. I know some parts were hard to hear. But if it helps even one person recognize the signs, trust their instincts, protect themselves, then it was worth telling. If this story touched your heart, I'd be so grateful if you could subscribe to this channel and hit that like button. And please turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. You never know whose life you might change. And remember, you are stronger than you know. You always have been. Take care of yourselves.